Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last year or so, I've been doing Filles du Roi episodes, and this is the second episode of my Pere Marnier, which we'll be exploring in a minute. But before we do that, here are some ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know: subscribe, like, and notify. The next three are ways that you can help the channel grow. The Ko-fi, Etsy, and Patreon all have their different kind of ways of supporting the channel. So check that out if that's something you'd like to do. And without further ado, let's get started and get to know episode 2, Filles Mariées. So les Filles Mariées were those girls that came from 1634 to 1662. It was not an organized program such as the Filles du Roi. It wasn't state-sponsored. It was basically the different priests and different organizations would invite the girls. They would come possibly a couple at a time, sometimes by themselves. So it was very kind of very individualized. And when you think about it, from 1634 to 1662 into 1663, there were only about 272 Filles Mariées, 260, I'm not quite sure of the exact number. But the fact of the matter is that they could not populate all of Quebec. And this is what les Filles Mariées were, the precursors to les Filles du Roi, because obviously having 200 women over a period of slightly under 30 years is not going to produce a nation. No matter how many babies they had, and they had a lot of babies. But so one gap, like for example, in 1634, we have one girl that comes. Another, in the 1640s, there might be 2 or 3 a year. So you can imagine how it was kind of fits and spurts and fits and spurts. It kind of got going in the 1650s, a little bit more. But by then, it was just a question that they needed something else. And les Filles du Roi was the answer they come. But before that, let's talk about each of these Filles Mariées, because these were really brave girls. Imagine coming to New France, in 1636 or 1640s. I can't even imagine what it must have been like. So these are truly, truly strong, strong ladies. Let's have a look at episode number 2 and our Filles Mariées for this episode. So if you've seen episode 1, you know that we looked at her sister, Catherine Saint-Pere, and so now we're looking at Jeanne Saint-Pere and her journey, if you will. We are going to basically start at the same place. Let's have a look at her journey and how she came across and who she married. So Jeanne was born in 1627 in Saint-Jean-d'Angely, which is a commune in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region of New France. It can be found in the Charente-Maritime department. The commune was actually founded in the 9th century as an abbey to house an artifact of St. John the Baptist, if you can believe it. It was rebuilt in the 14th, 17th, and 18th century, and that is the abbey. That on the top portion of your screen is a picture of what the city looks like, the commune, the town looks like to this day. So it's just amazing. I'd love to be able to walk those streets. And so Jeanne actually is a great aunt of mine. She's in my tree, but she's not a direct great grandmother. Her sister for me was. So let's have a look at who and how she got to New France. So Jeanne and Catherine, her sister, and their mother all became Filles Mariées. 2 of them would produce descendants. Obviously, their mother did marry, but did not produce any descendants. So they arrived in 1647. Just amazing. So the groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Pere Guillet, also known as Pere Guillet de la Jeunesse. So that's where that La Jeunesse, the younger one, I suppose. He was born in La Rochelle, France, and his parents were François Guillet and Pere Menard. Let's talk a little bit about La Rochelle. It was founded during the 10th century and became an important harbor in the 12th. Until the 15th century, La Rochelle was to be the largest French harbor on the Atlantic coast, dealing mainly in luxury goods and wine and salt and cheese. The name actually was recorded in 961 as Rupella, which meant Little Rock. And La Rochelle has one of the richest histories of all the towns of France. From its beginnings as an area where the Knights of Templar had their strongest base. Eleanor of Aquitaine married Henry Plantagen in 1152, who would have become the King of England, thus putting La Rochelle under Plantagenet rule, in other words, Protestant, until Louis VIII captured it in the 1224 siege of La Rochelle. During the Plantagen control of the city in 1185, Henry II had the Vauclair Castle built, remains of which are still visible in the Place de Verdun. And from 1568, La Rochelle did become a center for Huguenots. It was in La Rochelle that the Protestant revolts occurred and created the uprising that would become known as the Siege of La Rochelle. Throughout the 1630s, the Huguenots were expelled from La Rochelle. Do we have an idea if possibly Pere was a Huguenot? We do not know. But historically, this is the area that he came from. Possibly he was escaping all of that as well. He may not have been a Protestant, but he, and certainly, usually there's some indication that they were Huguenots, but in this case, I have not seen any evidence of that. So in 1648, Jeanne married Pere Guillet, somewhere in Trois-Rivières, and that is her sister married his brother, Mathurin Guillet, and so the brothers and the sisters got married. It didn't, on the other side, for Catherine, it didn't work out, but for Jeanne, this would become her one and only spouse. They were truly pioneers at Trois-Rivières, and just to give you an idea of Trois-Rivières and their importance, that where I've circled that on the left, that's his land. That's the territory that he had. So that's just an amazing, amazing evidence of how deep the roots of this family go in this section. You can see where Three Rivers is between Montreal and Quebec. And we find them on the 1667 and 1666 census. So they were there, and they had a tremendous amount of children. And so we know that they were there. That he had actually, if you look at the 1667 census, it says he has 78 enfants à valeur. That's somewhere between probably 70 to 75 acres of land, which is a tremendous amount. Okay, tremendous. Very, very large lots. Now, let's talk a little bit about Trois-Rivières. It's only the second settlement of New France. It was named Trois-Rivières because the St. Maurice River has three channels that form at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, thus Trois-Rivières. And it was known as Three Rivers for a long time in North America. But as the French regained control of their province, the French version overtook it. When I was growing up, we would call it Three Rivers, but now in Quebec, it really is Trois-Rivières. And Trois-Rivières was a very strategic location on the St. Lawrence River, and it helped the new nation grow and prosper. It also proved to be an important battle in the American Revolution, the Battle of Trois-Rivières. Some of you who have ancestors in this area at that time might be surprised at who would qualify for admission to the daughters or sons of the American Revolution. So let's have a look at where the family bases itself there. Let's have a look at what happens next. They would eventually move to Cap de la Madeleine. Cap de la Madeleine is an absolutely gorgeous place in Quebec. You can see that is the shoreline as it exists today. It is known for the Basilique Notre-Dame du Cap, dedicated to Our Lady of the Cape. It has performed miracles. This is a pilgrimage. And you can see that it's just up north a little bit of Trois-Rivières, according to the map. It was founded March 20th, 1651. The establishment was named by Jacques de la Ferté, who was an abbot of Sainte Madeleine de Châteaudun in France. And pilgrims are drawn to this area because of the miracles that have taken place here. And this is an area where it's just been very, very important. Even in World War II, the Royal Canadian Air Force built and operated their training school as part of the Commonwealth Air Training Plan at Cap de la Madeleine. So, it's just been one of those places that is not as well known, let's say, at Trois-Rivières, but very strategic in terms of, the people and the events that it may have inspired. They would go on to have 11 children. Madeleine would marry Marie Charlotte Lemoine and have 3 children, 2 of whom would survive. Madeleine would marry Robert Rivard de Loranger and have 12 children, 11 of whom would make it to adulthood. Jeanne would marry Mathieu Rouillard and have 6 children, all of whom made it. Anne would marry Jean Moreau and have 6 children, all of whom would make it. Catherine would marry Jacques Massé, have 7 children with him, all of them made it. And then marry Sébastien Provencher and have 3 children, all of whom made it. Louis would marry Marie Trottier and have 12 children, 9 of whom made it. Marie would marry Jean Baril and have 3 children, all of whom would make it before her untimely death at the age of 23. Marguerite would marry Pierre Deshayes and would have 12 children, 10 of whom would make it. Pierre would pass away at age 21 without any descendancy. Joseph would appear in the 1681 census, but we do not have any other information on him. Geneviève, their last child, would marry Pierre Chapoux and have 7 children, 5 of whom would make it. Jeanne would unfortunately pass away sometime before 1669. She was 43 years old. We do not have a death record or any cause of death. We do know that she wrote a will in February of 1669, so it is likely that she knew she was ill. But here's the remarkable thing about this woman. You know how many descendants they actually would have? They would have 459 descendants by 1729. This woman, who was here for about 20 years, produced 459. Just astonishing. So I suspect that many, many, many of you watching are a descendant of this remarkable lady. And they got married in 1648. So she would have, been married for, like I said, really about 21 years. So just a very short amount of time. Tremendous influence, tremendous influence. Pierre would go on to marry Fille du Roi, actually Madeleine Delaunay, in 1670, but he did not have any children with her. They would remain married for another 25 years, and you can see her on the census. And they still had some. He still had children living at home when his first wife had passed away, and so it's logical that he would need a woman to take care of his family. By 1681, we have the children that are much older. He's got 45 arpents valeur. I suspect he started selling off some land, basically by May 8th of 1696, he would pass away. He was 72 years old and a remarkable, remarkable man, a pioneer on so many levels. And he and his wife, Jeanne, would have that impact of those 459 descendants. That's just remarkable. Madeleine, his widow, would go on to live a few more years, but she would actually return to France and is buried at La Rochelle. And as always, this information is taken from that wonderful series of books from Thomas Laforêt and on French-Canadian pioneers, which I've listed in my resources. And among the variations are La Jeunesse, La Roche, Saint-Mars. These are all the names that they would have added to Gagne. And so you may find yourself, like in my case, my family name was Boulanger. But if you go up, it becomes Lefebvre. So I had to trace it back up to Lefebvre. So in this, it may be that Saint-Mars would be your deed to get you back up to Gagne. So if you see any of these names, doesn't mean that you are a descendant of this particular family, but it definitely gives you a clue. Here are some amazing resources. We have the Quebec Genealogical E-Society, which is a paid membership, which I belong to and absolutely adore. We have Généalogie Québec, another, to me, it's my ancestry.com. We have a free website, Généalogie du Québec et d'Amérique française. Nos origines is, and I've posted the addresses for you. Tremendous group. We have a couple of societies here. We have the French-Canadian Society of Michigan. We have the Quebec Family History Society. We have the American French Genealogical Society. And we have the habitatheritage.org. And another thing that I always like to talk about a little bit is Maple Stars and Stripes. Sandra Goodwin is a personal idol of mine. She really, during the pandemic, is when I discovered her podcasts and would listen to them as I was renovating my house. And she kind of inspired me to do this. So I owe a debt of gratitude to her as well. So please have a look at those and see what, how it can help you in your research. So we end our episode 2 of our series, actually of the 2 St. Pere sisters. So episode 1 was Catherine, episode 2 was Jeanne. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know these remarkable women. They alone account for so many. I think there's something like 600 or 700 descendants from these 2 ladies. So just remarkable impact, and they're certainly in Catherine's, she was able to live a very, very long life. But her sister, Jeanne, obviously passed away much earlier, but had a tremendous impact. So, we thank them so much for their bravery, their courage, their dedication, and their sacrifice, ultimately, for us to be here. They are women of substance, and they are the founding mothers of New France, of Quebec, and parts, throughout the world. So we thank them for the gift they have given us. I will see you on episode 3 of Les Filles Mariées. Until then, au revoir.